Rangers and overall hockey fans, thank you guys so much for coming back for episode 46, a Rangers review. Myself, Wardy, alongside Statboy Steven. We have a plethora of topics to get into in today's episode. We're going to try to go as fast as we can without rushing because there's a lot to discuss here. There really is. And of course, if you guys are watching the live stream right now, that being this being January 27th, Thursday, we, of course, will be taking questions towards the end of the live stream, so stay tuned for that. And if you're listening on replay, wherever you get your podcasts, thank you guys all so much for being here, no less. But a lot of games to get into. We'll be recapping games 40 to 43 for the Rangers, their past 4 games, in which they went 3-1 over that span. Then we'll be getting into really how the Rangers have fared in these games exactly without some key players that are currently out with injury going forward now, and also taking a look at some significant trade rumors have actually come out, something with substance that we can discuss regarding some key players in the league that may find themselves in New York or may not. Again, we're still right around 2 months away from the trade deadline, so still quite a bit, but I'm excited to get into that. And also some news on Ryan Strome contract extension potentially, along with leading up to the upcoming schedule for the Rangers that is highlighted by, Mr. Henrik Lundqvist's jersey night. Retiring that number 30 is going to be something special this Friday. But yeah, let's get into it, folks. Steven, how are you doing, my man?
Good. Busy week for me personally, with some non-hockey related stuff, but overall doing pretty well. Rangers going 3-1 definitely helps. It's nice to watch the Rangers again at midnight instead of 3:30 a.m.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure a lot of Ranger fans are happy to watch the Rangers at 7 p.m. again.
Yeah, no, it feels really good. And I think what also feels really good is knowing that I get to swipe that title away from your waist as we speak, because predictions from last episode, I think what did you have, Steven? Tell the folks.
I had 2-1-1 and you had 3-1-0, so we don't even need to look at the goals scored. You just flat out got the prediction.
I smoked you 3-1, and I had the over on goals. So, and the Rangers scored roughly 20 goals over the past 4 games. So everything went right. I will gladly take that back. Thank you very much. Now, getting into these games, we got a lot to discuss. And these games, I will say, there's one thing that was in unison about them all outside of Chris Kreider scoring literally in every single one of them. It was that the Rangers were flat-footed to start each and every one of these games, even in these 3-4 victories. They weren't pretty to start by any stretch, and quite embarrassing in some of them. But to see them come back was obviously huge. That shows a team that is not just resilient, but a team that more than likely is going to win games than lose. That is why they are currently first in the Metro at 28-11-4. Yes, with some games on hand, but no less. Big games to get into here. Let's start off with that first one in Toronto, Steven. So take it away.
Yeah.
Against Toronto, I should say.
Against Toronto, yeah. Of course, Rangers beat the Maple Leafs in Toronto earlier this season with that Panarin overtime goal. It was a different affair this time. Early on, Toronto Maple Leafs, really good start with 2 goals in the first 4 minutes of the game, Ilya Mikheyev and Mitch Marner. Rangers come back to 2-1. Ryan Reeves with a goal.
I didn't even know that was. I was honest. I thought that they were saying it wrong when they said that was his first of the year. It felt like Reeves already had one, but yeah, it was his first goal as a New York Ranger.
Ryan Reeves had some Artemi Panarin-esque assists so far this season.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Between the legs passes, spin around my backhand passes. The guy's playing out of his mind. The guy, he has all the confidence in the world this season, and he only scored his first goal now against the Maple Leafs on January 19th. Got the Rangers back in it, assisted by Greg McKeck and, of course, Adam Fox, because it wouldn't be a game without an Adam Fox assist. And then at the end of the period, Michael Bunting getting the 3rd goal for the Maple Leafs. So the Rangers go into the first intermission down 3-1. And this is, like you said, a little bit of a theme in the last week or so. Rangers have a slow start, but I don't know what Gallant said in that first intermission in the locker room. Whatever he said, it worked. Second period, 3 minutes in, Ryan Reeves for the second of the game becomes the first Ranger to score his first 2 goals for the franchise in the same game since Ryan Clough in 2013. His second goal assisted by Miller and Trouba. And then at the end of the period, Adam Fox with his 6th goal of the season, assisted by Strome and Panarin. And then going tied into the 3rd period, the Rangers come out strong again. Ryan Strome getting us the lead, assisted by Lindgren and Panarin. Chris Kreider with goal number 25 at even strength, assisted by Trouba and Zibanejad, and then near the end of regulation, Rangers up 5-3. Maple Leafs pull their goalie, and Adam Fox with his second goal of the game and the 7th of the season, assisted by Zibanejad. Zibanejad winning the faceoff in his own zone, and Fox from his own corner, from his own red line, goes for it, and it was a beautiful shot, and it shut up the Leafs fans everywhere. It was amazing. Rangers win the game 6-3. They jumped to a 26-10-4 record with that win. They got only 27 shots on goal in this game. Jack Campbell saved 21 of them. Of course, one of the shots was on the empty net. Shesterkin with a really good second and third period, recovered really well.
Phenomenal recovery on
35 saves in 38 games, and we'll get into Shesterkin a bit more later on. But yeah, liked what I saw from the Rangers in the second and third period. Not too happy about that first, but moving on to the next game.
Before we go on to the next game, just want to let everyone know that, of course, if you watch the game, Rangers did get dominated in the shot column, 38-27, and that was a huge focal point for Toronto in that first period. The Rangers were just getting outplayed, and unfortunately, it seemed like a common trend that we've had a lot this season, going against teams that are either around the same level record-wise or even a little bit ahead of them, and that was a concern going into this one. But then you had face-offs won by Leafs 55-45. Power play favored the Leafs 1-4 to 0-2. Hits dominated by the Rangers 31-12. Blocks even right around 14-15 apiece. Same thing with giveaways 8 and 9. But that second period and beyond, I don't know what Gallant did. He got a fire under their ass. Ryan Reeves looking like an absolute beauty out there. Had an awesome post game too that I saw. But yeah, loved everything.
5 unanswered goals, by the way, which the reason I mentioned it is because it won't be the last time I'm saying that on this recording.
Yeah, which is even more bizarre. 5 unanswered. Leafs coming, choking after a 3-1 lead. Need I say more? They're going to continue with their history. Let's be honest here. But that's enough of that. Let's pivot into the next game for the Rangers, which wasn't nearly as positive. And this was a game where, in my mind, the writing was on the wall. As soon as I saw, and let me make it clear, this game was not by any means all on Alexander Georgiev. But as soon as Gallant made the announcement that Georgiev was starting this game, I, myself, and most Ranger fans were rightfully pissed off. Now, we don't know the reasoning behind that. Could Igor maybe have just been a little roughed up? That it would have been better to go on the second night than that first night. If that's the reasoning that we just don't know, then okay, then I can't complain too much. But from what we know right now, that was a frustrating decision because, yes, Rangers definitely got outplayed in this one, but Igor has been that X factor. Igor has been the best player for the Rangers all season. You're not just looking at him potentially winning the Vezina, but he's making an argument to this point at potentially winning an MVP. That's how amazing he has been all season long. Without him, the Rangers at times are a shell of what they normally are because they need that type of guy in goaltending. And I know that we're not supposed to be relying on goaltending, but the Rangers, they've done it, and Igor thankfully has stepped up. So having him out was huge. And, of course, the former Rangers just poured it on. And, again, none of this was a surprise. If you would have thought that Tony DeAngelo, Jesper Fast would get no points in this one, you'd have to be an absolute fool. It was inevitable. And look, Carolina is now the new New York Rangers. It went from being the Tampa Bay Rangers to the Carolina Rangers. And it's funny because when you think of those two locations, those are some of the most prominent locations that New Yorkers end up moving to, either for work or just when they retire. So it's kind of bizarre how that all works out. But in the first, Vinny Trocheck scores, assisted by Tony D and Svechnikov. Then Seth Jarvis, the rookie, who I'm a big fan of. Again, I have no issues with this Carolina team. They're so much fun to watch. But yeah, Rangers definitely didn't fare well. Assisted by Aho and Teravainen. Getting on then to the second period, Jesper Fast scores on a nice setup from Tony D on the power play, and Lorentz having an assist as well. Not on the power play, just off the power play. But then Mika Zibanejad was able to answer off of a beautiful shot, this time on the power play. Prime Mika, onesie, beautiful snipe to make it at that point a 3-1 game, assisted by Panarin and Kreider. That was Mika's 15th of the year. But then Sebastian Aho in front, just poor defense, and honestly a bad look by Georgiev. That was one of the worst goals he gave up in that game because Georgiev went for a rebound, was not able to get his glove over the puck, just missed, and Aho was able to bury the second rebound there for his 17th of the year, unassisted, and then terrible defense again. Nino Niederreiter right in front, no defenseman there whatsoever. Rangers just looking so subpar. They were getting outplayed, outworked. It looked like that Carolina had a power play for the majority of the game in the offensive zone. Rangers was just gassed. They had no chance. Niederreiter gets his 11th, assisted by Svechnikov and Cole. It's a 5-1 game at that point. And here, I stopped watching. I'll be completely honest. And then I started watching again just to see them lose, because going to third, early on power play, Chris Kreider doing what he does best, scores to make it at least a little bit more of an interesting game. 5-2 at that point. He's 26th of the year, assisted by Fox and Zibanejad. Then Greg McKegg, the former Carolina Hurricane, scores his first of the year. Finally, Greg is doing something for the Rangers. He makes it a 5-3 game at that point, assisted by Revo and Miller. But then, of course, towards the end of the game on the power play, Tony DeAngelo gets a nice snipe from the point to score for his 7th of the year, assisted by Aho Trocheck. Tony scoring against Georgiev. Again, this was all inevitable, okay? That's all I have to say, really, about this one. It sucks that the Rangers got so outplayed, but Carolina is, along with the Colorado Avalanche, probably one of, if not the best team in the league. They've been that good all year long. They're so much fun to watch. Us Ranger fans know too well how good Carolina has been, really since the bubble, especially a little bit before that, as we've interacted with them. But Carolina outshot the Rangers 35-23. A faceoffs favored Carolina 53-47. Power plays, both teams scored 2 apiece. Hits dominated by the Rangers 39-23, but that's because they didn't have the puck as much too. Blocks even 14-14. Giveaways right around the same 15-16. Yeah, some bad goals given up by Georgiev, but just terrible play for a large portion of this game. And yeah, Carolina just simply outworked the Rangers. It was a good lesson learned for sure. First multiple matchups the Rangers have against the Hurricanes this season. But Steven, any more remarks on this game before we jump to the next one?
I think this was just a perfect example of where the Rangers are versus where the Rangers want to be.
Yep.
The Carolina Hurricanes are a more complete team. This team has gone to, I think they went to the conference finals a couple of years ago when they lost to Boston.
Yep.
That's the type of experience the Rangers are still lacking. And that playoff experience also comes in handy in the regular season, because there are certain situations where, you look at these games and you go, oh, it would be nice if the Rangers were able to do that. When the Carolina Hurricanes had sustained pressure 5-on-5 in our zone, like you said, it looked like a power play, but it was 5-on-5 play, and that's one of the things that the Rangers still need to get better at. So yeah, losing 6-3, it sucks, but you're playing against, in my opinion, one of the best teams in the league. And if I'd have to name one team in the East who would be my front runner to go for the Cup this year, it is Carolina.
Yeah, I don't even think it's, other than, of course, teams like Tampa and Florida and some others, the Hurricanes, they're not just constantly winning games, but they're doing it in just a dominant fashion. Yeah. They're just so much damn fun to watch. I mean, it sucks that they're in the Metro. Like, I've admired them for a while now, ever since they really got out of that lawn funk of just being a subpar team, getting away from Jeff Skinner, getting away from Cam Ward, all these others,
remember Semin? Yeah.
Yes, Alexander. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So the Carolina Hurricanes are a team that if the Rangers are out of the playoffs, that's a team that I could see a lot of people root for, because I mean, they are, aside from the fact that they are the former Whalers, they don't really have that much to look back on in terms of history. Yeah, they won a cup in 2006, but that cup was probably one of the most surprising cups in the last couple of decades. Nobody expected them to win that year. And they haven't really been able to build on that success. If you look at like the first 15 years in the salary cap era, the Hurricanes have like these 8-9 year stretches in between a playoff run where they don't make the playoffs at all. So it's an easy team to root for. They have a lot of players where you go, oh, okay, yeah, Jesper Fast, nice, Antti Ranta, Brendan Smith, Derek Stepan, Brady Shea, all former Rangers, all very popular still with this fan base. So for Ranger fans, if we are out of the playoffs, then that is a team that I could see a lot of Ranger fans root for, because aside from those former Rangers, there's just so many players on that team that are likable, like Seth Jarvis,
Tavo, Aho, defensively, Pesci. Slavin's my favorite. Like the list goes on and on.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Exactly.
Those players I was going to mention, it's just such a fun team to watch. And
Marty Necas, which is he's so underrated. Love
Martin
him too.
Necas is a guy that I saw in the Czech Republic before he was draft eligible. He was one of my favorite players going into the 2017 draft, and I was hoping he'd fall to 21, where we got Hedel. Didn't work out that way, but I did get attached to some players, having met them in person, and the Carolina Hurricanes have done a really good job drafting players that I've met over the years, like Patrick Puistola in Finland, and I remember meeting Seth Jarvis in Portland. I was in Portland for a week and went to a Winterhawks game.
He's going to be something special. He has really good goal scoring ability.
Seth Jarvis really stands out. But then there's also the Florida Panthers, with Anton Lundell, who's one of my favorite young players in this league, and Barkov and Huberdeau and Trocheck, Duclair. It's
you said Trocheck, wrong team. Nice idea though. Trocheck with Carolina.
No, who am I thinking of? Damn. Anyway, I'm blanking on the name now.
Okay. We'll come back to it because the Rangers have him on the upcoming schedule.
Sam Reinhart. They traded for Reinhart.
Yes, Reinhart and Bennett. I like them both quite a bit.
And then Sam Bennett. But what makes it easy to root for these teams is that they haven't had success.
Yep.
It's easy to root for the Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers, who have combined for one cup in the last 30 years.
But they're entertaining though. Like that's the thing. Like they have such a good balance of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially the Carolina Hurricanes with that storm surge they have going on. If Don Cherry hates it, you can guarantee that I'm a fan of it. Don Cherry complains about everything that's not traditional. Storm surge, I love it. But yeah, Rangers losing to the Carolina Hurricanes is not the worst thing in the world. It happens. You lose these games to teams that are unfortunately ahead of the curve of where you want to be. The Carolina Hurricanes finished their rebuild when they drafted Svechnikov in 2018. Yep. That's when the Rangers entered theirs. So just 1 or 2 more years and we're right up there with them. Anyway, after that loss, the Rangers come back to Madison Square Garden to take on the Arizona Coyotes.
What an effing game this was. Take it away, Steven.
Well, if people remember the game in Arizona, we all remember the slow start. It's a bit of a theme. And the same thing happened here. 3 minutes in, Liam O'Brien, first goal of the game, goes to the Coyotes, assisted by Louis Eriksson, of all people. and Shane Gostisbehere. This Coyotes team has players where you go, when did they get those players? Like Andrew Ladd and Nick Schmaltz and
they stay what they always do, and that's eating contracts.
Yeah, Riley Nash. Yeah. I never thought
they just picked him up too. They literally just picked Riley Nash up.
Galchenyuk, former 3rd overall pick. Anton Strome. It's just it's such a weird collection of players, but Coyotes draw first blood after 3 minutes, but Rangers not wasting any time. 46 seconds later, Jacob Trouba with his 7th of the year, assisted by Zibanejad and Kreider, leveling it up, and then Andrew Ladd, assisted by Fisher and Nash, and those first 2 goals in the first period by the Coyotes. Oof. That was some poor defense by, I'm just going to call him out, Patrick Nemeth. First goal, he was hugging another player instead of making the defensive play. That second goal, he chases Fisher behind the net when Schneider is already committing there. There's just no communication on that pairing, and it was so bad. But you go into the first intermission down 2-1. You're like, okay, we're playing at home. It's the Coyotes. We got this. And then you come out in the second period, and then Clayton Keller makes it 3-1.
The one respectable goal scorer.
And you're like, oh, here we go again. Down 3-1
against the damn Yotes. I was literally jaw dropped. I'm like, what in God's name am I watching right now?
Going down 3-1 against the Leafs at home, you're like, all right,
justified. Might be annoyed, but that's justified.
that can happen. against the Coyotes at home. That's just unacceptable. That's just unacceptable. I'm sorry. But then, the comeback. Short-handed goal by Chris Kreider, his second of his career, and his also his second in the last 5 games. Assisted by Trouba and Zibanejad, getting us back to 3-2. And then Julien Gauthier tying it up, assisted by Hunt and Rooney. And this is where things really took off. Panarin potting one on the power play. Kreider getting one at even strength.
Well, before you go to the power play, you know how we got there, right? That was really what turned the tide because of Larson just going after in that stupid play that caused the penalty. Like that was really the fire under the Rangers' ass. I was like, okay, here we go.
No, Larson cost them the game, in my opinion, because up to that point, it was 50-50, in my opinion. The Coyotes could have won that game. They could have pulled it out of the fire. But, Panarin scoring on a power play, assisted by Fox and Zibanejad. That was Panarin's 11th goal of the season. And then Kreider at even strength, getting his second of the game, his 28th of the season. His tying his career high. And this is where all the alarm bells started to go off in my head.
Me too.
Because I was like, oh my God, he scored shorthanded and he scored at even strength. If he scores on the power play, I wonder how many times that happened in Rangers history. So grabbed my laptop, started to look it up. And Trouba scored, and then we go on the power play with 10 minutes to go. And I kid you not, I'm typing out this tweet in case Kreider scores. How Chris Kreider is the 10th player in Rangers history to score a hat trick, where the goals are at even strength on the power play and shorthanded. And I didn't even finish typing, and he already scored. I think it was like 10 seconds into the power play. That was a really quick power play goal by Kreider. His 29th new career high.
And a Hattie. He's hit a career high. It's halfway through the season, Steven.
I know. And after you do the recap of the final game, I'm going to go over some numbers with you about Chris Kreider, because what Chris Kreider is doing this season is historic. You know how we talk about Jaromir Jagr's season in 05-06?
Yes.
You know how we still talk about Adam Graves scoring 52 goals?
This is Chris Kreider's Adam Graves year. And I'm going to stand firm on that.
This is Chris Kreider's Adam Graves year, but I'd say it's a better year than Adam Graves in 93-94, because Chris Kreider is doing something that only one other Ranger has done better in 96 years of Rangers hockey.
Wow.
But we'll get into that after you recap the final game. But to go over the numbers for the Coyotes game, Kreider getting his third of the game, his hat trick, assisted by Fox and Panarin. The Rangers get, 27 shots on goal. And the Coyotes got 29. So it was pretty even in terms of shots, not bad. But Chris Kreider, 3 goals, 1 assist for 4 points. Jacob Trouba, 2 goals, 1 assist for 3. Zibanejad, 3 assists. Fox, 2 assists. A Panarin, a goal and an assist. These are the games where these guys are racking up the points. And after you go over the next recap, we'll go over some of the numbers, because we have some players on pace to hit 60 points, and it's an interesting comparison to our last cup window that lasted 6 years. Anyway,
yes, I know what you're gonna say. Yep, hold that stat for sure.
Our last game against the LA Kings, which was Pride Night, so take it away.
Yes, I will take it away. And of course, that Coyotes game again, Rangers had 2 power play goals, the only ones in the game, and out hit Coyotes 24-16, blocks 19-14, all favoring the Rangers, and giveaways favoring Coyotes, but not a problem.
Who's power play for the Rangers?
It was Kreider scored one of them, and Panarin.
Who else? Of course, it was Kreider.
Yeah, well, you want to know what's hilarious about this game? Before we jump ahead, into the Kings game. This was the game. So I was dabbling in sports betting, and I was going to put down a parlay that had Kreider scoring the first goal of the game, and it was like plus 800, 800 or 900. I think it was 800. So if Kreider scored, I would have won like $45-50 with just a $5 one. But instead, I don't know why. I looked at the last game like an idiot, and I saw Mika scored first against the Canes, and then Kreider scored last. And Kreider has scored a lot of later in the game, like in the third period for the Rangers, especially of recent. So I was like, okay, I want Kreider to score, but I'll pick him for the last goal. And here he is of course, what does he do so early into this one against the Canes? Scores his 30th of the season, the first goal of the game. I don't mind losing a bet like that. That's not going to faze me whatsoever. 30th
And
assisted by Fox and Panarin, power play
and
goal.
First Ranger since Peter Pruka, first Rangers draft pick, a forward to score 30 goals for us since Peter Pruka in 06.
Absolutely crazy. It's so bizarre that Kreider hasn't hit 30 yet in his career, because he's always gotten that taste of 25, 28. But
Yeah.
to see him do it at this pace again, we're gonna drool all over Kreider in
We're in
this
January.
episode. We're in January. It's not
We're
even
in January.
February yet, and Chris Kreider has 30 goals, just on another level. But anyway, we get to the second period. Then Blake Lizotte gets himself a goal. Unfortunately, didn't love the defense there. Actually, no, it was a good screen that led to the goal. I think Lizotte, I think he was using Trouba really well to get that shot through and got a nice goal off Igor. And then the second goal right at the end of the period was Alex Iafallo, who's one of the better players for the Canes. Gets his 13th of the year on the power play. Just such a bad goal to give up right at the end of the period. Those are the worst goals to give up, especially on the power play like that, special teams wise, which was coming off of, wasn't that off of a horrendous call on Lafreniere that I'm pretty sure, wasn't it right at the end of that second period? I'm almost certain that there was a penalty called on Laffy, and it was an absolute joke. And then that led to the Iafallo goal.
No, this was the Goudreau high sticking.
Oh, my mistake. You're right. Yeah, I remember though that there was a terrible call on Lafreniere as well.
The boarding call.
Yeah, the boarding call, when it was just it was a normal check to Brown. If Brown didn't fall, that call wouldn't have happened. That was a joke in itself. But either way, Iafallo scores at the end to make it 2-1, which is frustrating. And then we had a third period, and thank you goodness Barclay Goodrow for making up for the penalty that he had earlier in the game. Gets himself a beautiful tip. If you just looked for a second, you thought that was Chris Kreider in front getting the game-tying goal. But no, it's Barclay Goodrow with his 8th of the year, assisted by Panarin and Strome, just with 6 minutes left in this one. And then
excuse me, that's Goudreau. That's that. Everyone was thinking, excuse me, that's Goudreau.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Yep. I thought it was Kreids at first too. I'm like, no, Kreids isn't on the. Nope. Okay, Goudreau, love that. But then we get to the shootout, and what a fun shootout this was, because as soon as Anze Kopitar came up,
Can we talk about the overtime going like the full 5 minutes without?
Oh yeah. I'll just break it down real quick. You guys watched the game, obviously, if you're watching this probably or listening wherever you get your podcast. But the overtime, I think this was unprecedented. So they had it based on the power play, because the Rangers had a power play going into OT, and it was 5-on-4 still, and there was not a one stoppage. So once the 5-on-4 was done, they stayed 4-on-4. They never changed. There was never a blown whistle. I've never seen anything like that in the history of overtime in the NHL. I've never seen it where they didn't have at least one stoppage to then switch to 3-on-3. That was really cool. It was just it was ridiculous, but it happened. And then we get into the shootout, and this was an entertaining one. My heart was pumping a little bit. I was getting a little antsy for sure. In the beginning, no one was able to really get anything going, from Adrian Kempe to Kreider to Arvidsson to Zibanejad. But then Anze Kopitar comes up, and I thought that if the Canes scored, they win it. I got myself thrown off, but I was like, oh, Kopitar's scoring. Like I knew for a fact he was going to, and he did. And then Artemi Panarin just waits it out, waits for the 5-hole, gets a beautiful snipe almost in the crease. How long he waited for Quick, who might add had a phenomenal great game. Jonathan Quick looked like prime Quick in this one, and had literally a highlight reel save like no tomorrow on Jacob Trouba during the game. Huge props to Quick. Great game on his part. But then a couple saves later from Iafallo and Ryan Strome apiece. Then Quinton Byfield, who I honestly forgot was even playing, because he only played just over 7 minutes in this one. I didn't see him much. He gets himself his first shootout goal, I believe, of his NHL career, and only his second or third game of the season. And then right after that, Alexis Lafreniere. The stage was set for Laffy to go after Byfield, and he scores beautifully. Love that, to see that from Alexis to get him 5-2. And then the winner ends up being Adam Fox, who had his first shootout attempt since junior, he said. Fox with a nice goal there on the backhand that got stuck in the net, and the Rangers ended up winning this one in a shootout. Big win for them. So happy
so that shootout attempt by Adam Fox reminded me of Patrick Kane in the 2010 Stanley Cup Final.
Yes. Yep.
That's Adam Fox was the only one at first to realize it was in the net.
Yeah, I thought it went over at first. I didn't see it. Yeah. But another key part of this game, before we get into the stats a little bit more, is the former Ranger and Brendan Lemieux circling back, doing a rewind. you think, okay, Lemieux, I honestly had a feeling he was going to score in this game just because Rangers and former Rangers, they go
That's
together
what I
like
did.
cheese and wine, right? But no, this was different. Lemieux, being the schmuck that he unfortunately has been, not to the lengths of biting, Lindgren the same way he did a Kachuk, but doing a big, just a complete cross check, boarding call, no tomorrow. There was no need to do that, but of course he did it. Lindgren thankfully was fine, got up, and then went to cross check him right away. And then there was a scuffle, and Lemieux got a major from it. So, Brendan Lemieux, welcome back to New York. Okay, that's about it though. Did not appreciate that. Rangers, there was a lot of penalties in this one. Rangers were 1 for 5 on the power play. Canes were 1 for 4. Canes outshot the Rangers 36-30. Faceoffs just favor the Rangers actually 53-47. Thank God they actually won. When you look at penalty minutes, again favoring the Canes, hits tied 26 apiece. Blocks favored Rangers 15-10, and giveaways. Canes impressively only had 1 to the Rangers 7. And huge game. Igor made some phenomenal saves in this one. 34 out of 36 saves. And same thing with Quick. This was a great goaltending game by both sides, but thankfully the Rangers legged this one out. So, Steven, any final remarks on this matchup between the Kings and the Rangers?
Yeah, the Kings buckets. I know a lot of people don't like them. The chrome helmets.
I don't like them. I'm sorry. If you like them, I don't care. I don't like
I'll
them.
say this though. I'll say this. If there's one arena in the world where those buckets are a good idea, it's Madison Square Garden. Because every time, I don't know, maybe I was the only one who noticed this, but every time there was a close-up of a player during the broadcast, you could see the reflection of the iconic ceiling on the helmet.
Okay, that's fair.
That
Fair. You would be the one person to point that out, quite literally. So I
that's
appreciate
the
the fact that you
only
did.
thing that made those helmets worth it for me.
Yeah.
Any other arena, you don't notice that stuff, but the iconic Madison Square Garden ceiling, like I said, every time there was a close up, you could see in the reflection of the helmet, you could see that iconics, like almost like a sundial.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
it,
so unique. It's
it
just
was,
it's
it was,
MSG. That's why Igor has it on its pads. It looks
which
so cool.
reminds me, I really miss the old MSG intro that they had about 10 years ago.
Yeah, yep. I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, moving on. Rangers go 3-1. You get the belt back.
Damn right I do. Get used to that, Steven. But
Uh,
let's talk about positives because I
oh,
know that
oh,
losing the belt isn't one of them. Let's
oh,
just embrace the gloriness, the amazingness that
yeah,
is Chris Kreider. Because looking over these past 4 games that transpired, Kreider during that span, 8 points, 6 goals, 2 assists. He's on a 6-game goal streak. And looking at other players that did so well over the stretch point wise, Foxy, 7 points, 2 goals, 5 assists. Mika, 1
fantastic.
goal, 6 assists, 7 points. Panarin, 1 goal, 6 assists, 7 points. And Igor, again, he's one of the first goaltenders in Rangers history in a while. We're talking, I think, since the 70s to have 20 wins in the first. Only took 26 games this season for Igor Shesterkin to have 20 wins already this
Yeah,
year.
he has a
That's
really good shot at being only the second Rangers goalie to get 40 wins in a season.
just insane. Look, if you know Igor, if you were following him in the KHL, he was a wins machine. All he did was win. Like, he had little to no losses in his column. So, like, to see him do this isn't all that surprising for basing things off of his KHL numbers. But still, at the AHL level, to still leg out these wins, and knowing that when you look at a win column, normally you don't want to favor it a lot. I view it a little bit similar to, pitchers in Major League Baseball having wins. That doesn't justify anything. Having wins, they can only control so much. But Igor's not just getting wins, but he's controlling the fate of those wins for almost every single one of those games. Like, that isn't something where it's completely offensive heavy and he's playing terribly, but he's still getting a win. He leads the league in save percentage right now among starters at 937, has a goals allowed average of only 2.07. Like, he's been on another level all season long, but just further appreciation to Igor, the heir apparent to Lundqvist,
So
if you will.
I'm
Just
going to say
phenomenal performance all
he's
season long.
he's a lock for the Vezina, and he's in the conversation for the Hart.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
I don't think he's going to win the Hart because you know how hard that is for goaltenders. But if there's any season, as
I
long as
think
he
I think
continues
yeah,
this projection,
I think Ovechkin's going to win the Hart with
yeah,
everything
I think so
that
too.
he put up. But Shesterkin could be a Hart finalist, which for a goalie in only his third season would be mightily impressive. I think the last 3 goalies that won the Hart were Carey Price, Jose Theodore, and then Dominic Hasek.
The fact
So,
that Jose Theodore won Is
Yeah.
just his career is so interesting. We won't get on a tangent, but
Yeah.
he's an interesting character.
Anyway, yeah, Kreider season so far, and I don't want to get too carried away here, but aside from the way they play, because there's still something to be desired at even strength, but the numbers, if you look at the performances in terms of production, there are some shades of 93, 94, Shashorkin season, Fox, who's playing a Norris caliber season on defense, Chris Kreider, who is doing his best to replicate Graves. And then you have Lindgren and Truba on defense. You have Zibanejad and Panarin on offense. It's such a fun team this season. But looking at Kreider and going into those numbers a little bit further, Kreider having 30 goals this season after 43 games. Looked it up. He ties Don Murdoch, Rod Gilbert, and Bill Cook for second most goals after the team's first 43 games with 30.
Wow.
The only player in Rangers history to have more goals at this stage of the season was Bill Cook in 1926-27. He had 33 in his first 43 games. But what's even more impressive, because we can talk about goals all we want, but what's even more impressive to me is power play goals. Chris Kreider leads the league in power play goals with 15. He's basically 50-50 in terms of power play goals and goal sales, where like 15 goals of him are on the power play, 2 shorthanded, and then 13 at even strength. His 15 power play goals rank second all time in Rangers history after 43 games, behind only Camille Henry in 57-58.
Wow, that's amazing.
Camille Henry had 16 after 43 games. Vic Hatfield tied with Kreider for 15. And then to finish the list with power play goals after 43 games in Rangers history, Marcel Dion with 14 in 87-88, Mike Gardner with 13 in 91-92, and then Pierre LaRouche, Marian Gaborik, and Jaromir Jagr. Jaromir Jagr, who set the franchise record for power play goals in a single season with 25, at this stage of the season only at 12. Wow. Chris Kreider is currently on pace to break both the records for goals with 57 and power play goals with 27. So I don't know if he's going to keep this up, but we've been talking about him falling off a cliff and
he hasn't done it. That SOP hasn't done it. It's finally his breakout year.
And couldn't be happier for the guy who I'm going to say it, cup or not, number 20 is going up in the rafters when Kreider hangs it all up.
Yeah, especially as long as he continues his career with the Rangers. I mean, out of all the talk that we had initially going into the season about his future, and if he's going to be part of it at some point, of course anything can happen. I don't expect Kreider to keep up his pace, over the next couple of years. But
if you go with safe bets in terms of what he will do in the next 7 years, there's a really good chance that Kreider finishes top 10 or even top 5 in categories such as games played, goals, points for the Rangers.
The goal scoring is so important too, because if you look at how he's scoring his goals, these are not things that will directly be prohibited for him as he gets older. He's not going in and constantly sniping it. He's just a deflection machine first and foremost. He always has been, but now he's reached an elite level. He's been for a bit, but he's unprecedented right now. And if you look at someone kind of similar in that certain sense, and now he's in his late 30s, but he's still getting the job done goal scoring wise because of his net front presence. Is someone like Joe Pavelski. A lot of similarities there. So if we're basing things on progression,
Pavelski has 38 points in 30 games.
My point, and Pavelski's someone that I did not think would be able to keep up this production when he went to Dallas, because unfortunately we've seen with a lot of vets that go to Dallas, Jason Spezza is a good example, especially, towards the end of his time there, just wasn't what they once were. And Pavelski's still getting it done. So, and he's a guy that is known for that net front presence. Kreider has exactly that. So if we're basing things on how to keep him, longer term, still being able to put up some nice points and put up the goal scoring, he just needs to keep doing what he's been doing best. Just keep doing that. That is, and he has the size. It's not like he's a smaller statured guy that is getting beat up every single time he tries to go by the crease. No, he has everything that you would want for a guy that should have longevity given his play style.
Yeah, and if you look at the Rangers this season, it's just unreal what the Rangers are doing in terms of their like top heavy scoring. Um, in the 6 year cup window the Rangers went through between 2011 and 2017, where they made it to two conference finals and a Stanley Cup final. They won a
Mhm.
President's Trophy. In those 6 seasons, they had 5 players in total hitting 60 points in a single season. It was Gabrick with 76, Nash with 69, Richards with
Nice.
66, Zuccarello 61, and Brassard hitting 60. This season, the Rangers have 5 players on pace to hit 60 just this season.
And that's the difference. Growing up, through my first years as a Rangers fan, especially in the early 2010s, that was the biggest thing that frustrated me about them. Do you need to have, of course, point getters that are constantly getting, in the 70, 80, 90? No. But when you look at the teams that are winning every year, they normally at least have that one outlier, that one guy that sticks out. For the most
Yeah.
part, the Rangers didn't have that. They had many years where it was Brassard and Zuccarello, bouncing around 45, 50 points. Like that was the norm for us while they were still very much in their window of winning now. And seeing how they've changed things now and throughout this rebuild it's to another level offensively. So as long as they continue to build that depth, which I do believe that they will over these next couple of years, the bottom six and of course the defense staying rounded down and getting better, like they're going to have that perfect balance that we see from the top teams in the league that are dominating the NHL right now.
Yeah, it's just it's such an interesting way of looking at this team and thinking what would the Rangers have been able to accomplish if they had one of these players back in 2012 or 2014.
Yeah.
Just one. Just give me Fox or give me Panarin. Just that's it. I'd probably go with Panarin. For the way that team was constructed, I think Panarin would have been the missing link.
They needed the goal scoring.
Yeah.
Obviously, having a huge puck moving defenseman is something the Rangers lacked. They didn't. McDonough was like that guy for them, while he wasn't necessarily known for it. But they didn't. They never had a guy like Panarin.
Yeah, but if I could, like I said, if I could pick one player from this team and put it in the 2010s Rangers,
Rangers win the cup against the Canes if they have Panarin.
If they have Panarin, they win a cup. Yeah.
As long as Panarin can handle the size, that was the only thing because the Rangers got completely outsized that series.
Yeah.
But let's pivot because this is something that I know we'll be answering some more questions on in the comments when we get to the Q&A segment of the live stream or wherever you get your podcast. But Steven, there's actually been trade rumors that have come out that are significant. Like we're talking from the Elliot Freemans, the Frank Saravellis of the world. And yes, we're still, right around 2 months away from the NHL trade deadline, but there are teams that have already shown interest in players. And the Rangers are a team with Kakko on the IR right now. He's week to week, unfortunately. Seems like he was dealing with stuff for a while. And then that Canes game kind of took him over the edge, unfortunately, with whatever upper body injury he has. And Heedle's day-to-day at the time of recording this, I don't believe he's playing tonight against in tonight's game. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check. But no less, the Rangers definitely can use depth. And something that they are looking for, a little surprising, but again, there's no denying how much of a help he would bring, is Jakob Chychrun. He is that main one. And I apologize if I'm butchering his name. The spelling just throws me off completely. But I've been a big fan of his for a while now. He's been that big defenseman for Arizona outside of Oliver Ekman-Larsson, up until he went to Vancouver. Only 23 years of age. He's having a down year offensively, but if you look at the team around him, how can you blame the guy? It's a completely different structure. He's under a new coaching staff now without talking, but Chychrun, again, 23 years of age, is on a contract for $4.6 million until the 2024-2025 season has finished. In 30 games played, has 8 points. He's a -31, but again, it's Arizona. I don't give a damn about that plus-minus right now. What I look at, though, is past couple of years, in 56 games played last season, 18 goals, 23 assists, 41 points. Year prior, 12 goals, 14 assists, 26 points in 63 games. And he has proven to be quite the balanced defenseman. A lot of teams want him. And the Rangers a couple games ago actually made a trade offer for Jacob. Now, it's interesting that we're talking about him right now, however, because the Rangers made an offer, and that offer included Vitaly Krasov. Surprise, surprise. No one should be shocked by that. Yeah. But Arizona's looking for, quite the ransom in return. They want a lot. And according to Elliot Freeman yesterday, from the reports that I saw, is that the Rangers and one other team as of now are out. Them and the Kings, I believe, are currently out on Jacob Chychrun. So, of course, things can change. I assume that the Rangers will circle back, especially assuming that he isn't dealt until closer, if not at the trade deadline. We still got plenty of time, but the Rangers have already made an offer, so they definitely have a good amount of interest. So what's your take on Jacob Chychrun? Because he does stick out quite a bit over some other players the Rangers are showing interest in that we'll be getting into here in a second.
Yeah, Chychrun, I think, is a player that this team can definitely use. When you look at our defense, on the right side, of course, you have Fox and Trouba. On the left side, you have Lindgren, and then not much else. You know, you have a Keandre Miller who is still unproven, in my opinion, still has a ways to go. And then Patrick Nemeth, who is, I mean,
just leave it at that.
I would take Jack Johnson over Patrick Nemeth at this stage. I mean,
I would too.
I just want a defenseman who doesn't push players into our goalies. That's all I'm asking for at this stage.
Or just somehow get caught behind the net.
Or that. I mean, but the Rangers need some help on the left side of defense, and there are 3 holes that the Rangers need to fill. It's center, right wing, and left side of defense. But the problem with the Rangers is the salary cap.
Absolutely.
You know, the salary cap's going up, maybe $1 million. Adam Fox has a contract that's kicking in for what, $9.5 million, I think.
Yep.
Then you have the Zibanejad contract that's kicking in. There's talks about the Rangers negotiating an extension with Ryan Strome, which is the right thing.
That we'll be touching on real soon. That report actually just came out over the past day.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where Chychrun will fit under the cap past this season. I mean, this season's not a problem. I mean, the Rangers have cap space to burn.
They would most certainly have to part with, I'd have to imagine, like a Filipino. I think he's one of the first that you think of when it comes to
even if you get rid of Hedel and Nemeth, that'll get you what, $3 million in cap space.
Yeah.
That you still need to sign your RFAs, you know, Kakko, Blais. And then next season you have RFAs to sign in Lafreniere and Miller, and the year after that, you know, it just keeps stacking up. And if the Rangers want to fit Chychrun under the cap, they need to somehow find a way to get rid of players that we may not want to see this team get rid of. And
you know who actually stands out to me?
Who?
Even though I will say I don't see it happening because of the commitment. And because of the actually no, never mind. It's definitely not happening because he's on a modified no trade clause. Is Barclay Goodrow?
Yeah, Goodrow is probably still easier to trade than a guy like Jacob Trouba.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think the Rangers want to trade Trouba right now, though, either.
No, but the Rangers also didn't want to trade Carl Hagelin in 2015.
Fair.
Sometimes you make a trade because you have to, not because you want to.
And that's what stemmed the Pavel Buchnevich trade. So, you know, here we are now.
And, you know, it's not going to get easier. It's only going to get harder now with the salary cap not going up as expected. This pandemic is still affecting the league. If the Rangers are serious about acquiring Jacob Chychrun, then it will come at the expense of another player. A player that we don't want to see leave, like Ryan Lindgren. What if he is the casualty? But at that stage, you have to think to yourself, is whatever you're giving up for Chychrun really worth the upgrade to go from Lindgren to Chychrun? Is that really worth the upgrade? I just don't see it happening unless the Rangers can figure out a deal where they retain some salary.
Yeah, I mean, would Arizona be willing? I mean, Arizona is the team to usually do that. That's a good point. Would they be willing to go down that length for the next couple, for the remainder of his contract? Should the Rangers, of course, you know, maybe add one more pick because they're so deprived pick wise and prospect capital wise that's something that would be feasible for them. But they want a haul. No, they want, you know, as they're going to start really high, then they're going to come down low. We'll see how low.
The Coyotes are going to trade Chychrun to the team that gives them the best return.
Yep.
And that's the right thing to do. I just don't think the Rangers are willing to give up what would be the best return.
I also don't think the Rangers are in a spot where they absolutely need to. Like, I wouldn't mind Jacob Chychrun at all. I think he'd be
Yeah.
awesome get for the Rangers, but
So
that means
the
that
trick
we are
is,
kind of closing the door on a Zach
yeah,
Jones,
yeah.
and Niels Lundqvist to a certain extent.
The trick for the Rangers is to acquire a player before they become that established, contributing guy.
Yeah.
The way we did with Zibanejad in 2016. We acquire Zibanejad before he becomes that top player. I think the Rangers missed the opportunity for a guy like Lindholm of the Calgary Flames, like
Yes.
a year or two ago.
And he was part of Carolina, and they were. That's
Yeah.
another interesting piece. Not to get on a tangent, but I
He was
liked him a
part of
lot
the
with
Adam Fox
Carolina. They parted with him, and it still worked out for both sides in the end.
that was the Adam Fox trade, the first Adam Fox trade.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right, because that included that was Dougie Hamilton, right?
And Noah Hannafin.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, if you look at players like Rope Hintz, he'd be perfect for the Rangers, but it's too late. And I think we're already too late with Jacob Chychrun. What you want to do is acquire the player who is going to be next year's Jacob Chychrun. But in that case, I mean, if you're going for that kind of player, I would argue we already have next year's Chychrun in the system.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. That's what I mean. If the Rangers didn't have the defensive capital that they have in their system right now, I think it's a completely different discussion. I think that this is a lot more warranted to go all in. Maybe you overspend a little bit, but you're getting not just a really good, young, promising defenseman that can be on this team for a while and return, but also knowing that you don't have to worry nearly as much about that left side for the years to come.
No, but no, the left side is not really a worry. More so that it takes time. We just need to be patient with it. We have Robertson, we have Jones. Lundqvist could move to the left side if we have to. We just need to hope that Miller develops, and that on the third pairing we give Robertson or Jones a shot, and then you're looking at a whole different scenario. But look, the guy for me that makes the most sense is off season. If you really want to go after a guy that's going to make a huge impact on the Rangers, it's Joe Pavelski. The Dallas Stars are out of the playoffs. Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin have a terrible season.
So you're in favor of getting Joe, just not obviously via trade, but when he's a free agent. I can understand.
I wouldn't mind trading for him if the intention is to extend him.
Really? Because I have my own little concerns with Pavelski. Not that he hasn't been, rock solid for so long, but really it's just his age. My concern is, when is he going to fall off that cliff?
I'm not talking about extending him for $5-6 million.
Oh, I know.
When you look at Joe Thornton a couple of years ago, he slowly went down in terms of cap hit. He went from, I think, 7 million to 5 million to 2 million to 700K. If you can get Pavelski at the deadline and add that veteran presence on top of what we already have, and then in the offseason convince him to sign an extension with a favorable cap hit that we can fit underneath the cap, it could benefit both sides here, because Pavelski is 38. He's chasing a cup. The Rangers are in dire need of help down the middle. It could be a fit. I would rather go after Pavelski than go after a guy like Phil Kessel.
Agreed. I agree on that.
If you look at a guy like Chychrun, the trade only makes sense if the Coyotes retain 50%. Because otherwise, it's just not going to
Unless the Rangers just somehow get very creative that we aren't, trying to come up with in our minds right now, that we just can't seem to figure out. Anything's possible. But, he's the one where the Rangers have given an offer to. And the other two players that we'll be discussing here for just a little bit are the ones that the Rangers have reportedly shown interest in. And one of them is very conflicting because it's someone that we talked about already, that being in Mr. JT Miller, the former Ranger. And from what reports have indicated, that the Rangers have been one of the more aggressive teams in on Miller, along with 3 other clubs to be exact. And I've also seen some conflicting reports from not as official, but people that I do trust on social media, that do have sources that have been accurate a lot, saying that they don't view Miller as likely as other clubs because they feel that there are clubs that are just kicking the tires a lot more than the Rangers. But what we know, at least officially at this point, is that the Rangers are one of multiple teams in on JT Miller, and that they apparently have not just a first level, but a second level of interest on bringing him back to New York. So I know your stance on Miller. He's someone where my biggest issue with going after someone like him is the fact of you're going to bring him in. He's going to come on the wing, and you look at his cap hit. Okay, why the hell did we get rid of Pavel Buchnevich then? Can someone enlighten me why we did that? Because that's my issue. It's not JT Miller isn't my issue. It's why we've gotten to the point of wanting a JT Miller. You get what I mean? It's very contradictory. It doesn't add up to me. Yes, I know he has the versatility. He can play both the wing and the center position. And maybe that is the X factor. Maybe that is something that Chris Drury prioritizes the most about him. If so, then okay, I can understand that at least a little bit more. But still, when you look at his cap hit, he is $5.25 million of course, this season and next season, and then he's a free agent. So shorter term makes sense. Buchnevich isn't on a crazy long-term contract though right now either. So I don't know. Miller would be a fantastic get, production-wise. I would love him back in New York. I think he would do great things, but from what you would have to give up to what, the Rangers did with losing Buch, it's just really head-scratching to me.
The Buchnevich trade is a loss,
Yes.
Sometimes you make a bad deal, and you cut your losses. It is what it is. It's been 6 months. We're over it. It's fine. But JT Miller, the reason I'm not a huge fan of acquiring him is because players don't tend to do well when they go back to former teams. And I don't know if it's a mental aspect or if it's something else, but look, aside from Peter Nedved and Dominic Moore, do we have any successful stories of players coming back? Messier was terrible his second stint. Kovalev, his second, and I think he even had a third stint with the Rangers. It's just it doesn't work out. Players don't come back to an old environment and perform the way they are expected to perform, because you are coming back to an environment where you are having issues. In JT Miller's case, are you going to be resilient enough to not fall back into that old pattern? That's my biggest concern.
And rightfully so. I think that's a fair concern. My bigger concern with him,
if we're talking about the player JT Miller, yeah, any day.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a point per game again this year. 40 points, 40 games, 12 goals, 28 assists. He's hit career highs, since he landed in Vancouver. But what we know, and that we referenced a lot in last episode, was how the change of scenery changed him so much. Like how mentally he went through a bit and finally found the willingness to be excited about playing hockey again. And I know he's grown. I know he's developed. I know he's not what he used to be. But to go back where he started, where he wasn't mentally in a comfortable place where he is now, that's just a little bit of a question mark as to what we could expect from him. Only time will tell.
I think, and maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but I think the destination for Miller will be Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I hate that you say that. I really hate that you say that, because it makes a lot of sense.
Think about it. He is from Ohio.
I know. I'm well aware. This sucks. I hate that you said that.
He grew up literally like an hour away from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he was a Pittsburgh fan for everything.
The Vancouver Canucks fan worked in the Pittsburgh organization for the last 15 years. It's too convenient for that trade to not happen.
Rangers have far and away the better assets to cough up though than Pittsburgh though.
Yeah, but and this is what I was mentioning earlier with Chychrun. Having the assets is one thing, but are you willing to part with those assets? We saw it in the Jack Eichel rumors, all this talk about this is what the Sabres want, this and that, blah blah blah. And Drury, you have the assets to go after a guy like Eichel, but do you want to give up those assets? That's a different question. And the same thing is true for JT Miller now, and the same thing is true for Jacob Chikrin, and whatever other player will be linked to the Rangers in the coming weeks. The question is not, do we have the assets? The question is, does Drury want to give up the assets?
And I think that he should be as strategic as possible. I don't think that he should go, all in the same way that if this was just a couple years ago, pre-Gordon, that we would normally see. Penguins are that desperate. Penguins are usually that desperate team. They somehow, some way, they're still defying the odds this year. They just are going to keep doing it until Crosby and Malkin are gone. In season, it doesn't matter who's on that roster.
It also makes more sense for the Penguins to do it. You already have 3 cups in the last 12 years. You made it to the cup final in 08. You won it in 09, and they had back-to-back cups in 16 and 17. You are at the tail end of the careers of 2 generational players that you lucked into in the draft, Malkin and Crosby. It's much easier to sell to fans. We're going all in. We're going to try and squeeze another cup out of this core when you already have those cups to back it up. The Rangers have not won a cup since 94. Everyone knows this. The Rangers don't really have that recent success where you can go, listen, if this doesn't work out, at least we tried. If the Rangers go all in and it backfires, they're screwed. If the Rangers go all in and they trade away key young players, they're screwed, because those are the players you're going to need in 2-3 years. If you want to be a contender for a decade, you need to hang on to those young assets. The Boston Bruins were a contender for a decade. They made it to 3 Stanley Cup finals. Yeah, they only won one of them, but they were a contender every year from 2010 to 2020. Every year they were a contender. Every year they were in the mix. And the reason they were in the mix is because they won a cup early, and they could justify trading away picks and prospects because they wanted to go for another one. If it backfires, hey, we got a cup a couple of years ago, so it's not the worst thing in the world. Drury needs to be careful to not go all in and end up with nothing. Because if this generation of Ranger players ends up without a cup, then it's just another one in a long line of disappointments for this team. We just watched Henrik Lundqvist play in the NHL for 15 years. He went to the cup final once, and he never got his hands on a cup. On Friday, tomorrow night, the Rangers are going to retire his number, and it'll always sting that we never were able to get him a cup. Now we have Adam Fox, Igor Shesterkin, Artemi Panarin. Panarin never won a cup. He joined the Blackhawks after their 3rd cup.
Yep.
You have Kreider, who's been here since we drafted him in 2009. He's been here since 2012. Mika Zibanejad. We have this amazing core. You could include Jacob Trouba in this. We have this amazing core of players. If you're going all in and you come up short, then you're done, because your cup window is so narrow. You're going to have 1, maybe 2 postseasons to go for it. I rather be a contender for a decade than be a contender for 2 years.
I know. And you've said this plenty already, and so have I. We're in agreement on that one. So in a nutshell, we just want to make sure that, of course, if a trade does happen, that it just makes sense more than anything. I just don't want the Rangers to continuously give up the farm like they did last time that they had their quote unquote cup window, right? During the 2010s. I don't want them giving up 1st-round picks every year. I don't want them giving up, some key prospects just for the sake of going after a grizzled vet, especially if they're, say, going to be a rental. Like, that's something I'm personally not on board with, but you definitely can justify.
Can you hold on? Someone's at the door.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, we'll keep going. No worries. But in a nutshell, there's so many people that the Rangers have parted with, or picks wise that them became good players that, again, looking back, it just wasn't justified enough. So they need to make sure that they're in a spot right now, not just for this season, but for the season going forward, that they got to be smart. Chris Drury, he's made some good moves and he's made some, head scratching moves. Of course, that Buchnevich one sticks out like a sore thumb as by far the most head scratching. He just needs to make sure he doesn't put himself in a position like that again, where it's a trade that lopsided, even given the reasoning. I understand why to part with Buch based on you can't handle his future cap hit, but there was no justifying that, the value that you got in return. And when you look at the Rangers right now and what their team is constructed at going into the playoffs, they're a team right now that, yes, they're a top team in the league, but it's also not a team that I want to give up, every single thing known to man asset wise to acquire a player that maybe isn't even going to be here long term, or that you still have to figure out how is he going to fit under the cap maybe after a year or so. So there's a lot of ups and downs with how the Rangers go about things. And one player that I do want to mention to wrap things up on the trade rumor front before we get to questions that will be answering questions in the live stream here is Artturi Lehkonen. Steven, I'm not sure if you saw the report, but over the past day, the Rangers have shown interest in Jeff Gordon's, running the show for the Habs, Artturi Lehkonen. And this is a forward that I'm on board with, because obviously you're not giving up an arm and a leg for. What I am concerned is just doing anything with Jeff Gordon. That's the biggest thing. Even something small, I'm going to be nervous about. And thankfully, of course, him and Chris Drury have such a great relationship. So I know that they understand each other very well on how to make deals happen. But Lehkonen is someone that the Rangers need depth wing-wise. If you can get me a Lehkonen and if he can be basically our Dryden Hunt, sign me up. He has a cap hit of $2.3 million. Then he is an RFA after the season. You can figure out what you want to do with him. 26 years of age, 15 points in 38 games. He's had some better years than more recently. His career high, 31 points in 2018, 2019. Seemed like a guy that when he came out of the gate had 18 goals, 10 assists, 28 points. Seemed like that he would have hit a higher point than what he has this. A little bit reminding me of Alex Galchenyuk, not to the same point-wise or play-wise, but just guys where you thought that they would have been a little bit more consistent than what they have from what we saw early on in their careers, but still someone that I think would make oodles amount of sense for the Rangers in their bottom six. They could definitely use a depth winner, a young one that is not going to break the bank, and he definitely checks off that box.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think Lehkonen's better than Hunt.
Agreed.
If we're acquiring Artturi Lehkonen, I need him to be better than Dryden Hunt. There's nothing against Dryden Hunt, but Hunt is basically another Colin Blackwell, bottom six player who is pushed into the top six out of necessity. The Rangers need someone. Well, Lehkonen for the bottom six is great. They still need someone better for that top six role with Kakko on the right wing. But if you're going after a guy at the deadline, Lehkonen is the type of guy that makes sense. Like you said, it's not the player that you give up a lot of assets for. It's the depth acquisition. Yeah, I could see that happening. Lehkonen and Kakko practice together in the offseason, so there's a connection there.
Oh, I did not know that.
Some familiarity.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's really all there is to know on the rumor front right now. Again, we'll be answering questions here in a second. There's one other player that I saw thrown out there. I don't know exactly where report it was from. I think it's for Ryan Carpenter, who, of course, had some good years during his time as a depth forward under Gerard Gallant. So there is that connection as well, just another depth guy. Rangers going to be connected to a lot of people, but it was fun to actually get something of substance now, and we'll see how much this either progresses or regresses by the time that we talk again a week from now. But second and last thing that we get into before the Q&A here is Strome. Ryan Strome. Yes, extension talks have begun with Ryan Strome. I don't really think there's much more to harp on regarding this. You and I have been beyond advocating for Ryan Strome.
Not surprised in the slightest.
No, and it shouldn't be surprising. I'm happy that's starting now. If they can get this dialogue halfway through the season, it's always better than having no discussions until, he's going to hit the market. So I like this. If the Rangers can get something done that makes sense for both sides without, of course, really breaking the bank for the Rangers going forward, then by all means, sign me up. I want Ryan Strome on this team at this point. I think that's been established.
Yeah, and it's also about Panarin. You want to keep your star player happy. Panarin plays better when he's with Strome.
Yep.
It's that simple.
Same way how I felt when Panarin was on the right wing the other night. I did not like that with Kreider and Zibanejad. I looked at that, and I know you liked the lineup. I know you said that you were impressed by it, but I knew, one, this wasn't going to last long. And sure enough, when the Rangers finally got in a groove, that was with Panarin back on the second line with Strome.
if you want to get the most out of your team in a game, in a single game, you want to come back from a deficit. Yeah, by all means, go all in with your players and stack your players on the top line. I get it.
I don't even think that works though.
But
It improved the work for the
but
Rangers under Quinn.
if you have 5 minutes to go, you're down 2-1. Yeah, just put Panarin out there with Zibanejad and Kreider. But it doesn't work for a whole game.
Yep.
And Gallant understands that, luckily. But Panarin's happy that with Strome. Strome is happy with Panarin. Just keep those two together, man. It's not that complicated. And this is an extension that I am not surprised by at all. Because if you don't sign Strome to an extension, what are you gonna do? And don't say Hurdle, because the Rangers don't even know if Hurdle wants to come here.
Yeah, I think they're going to work. I think they're going to work with Ryan Strome first and foremost. And if for whatever reason they have a falling out, that's of course where you go for pivots. Guys that can still make sense in a similar role. But until we get to that point, which I honestly don't think we will, Ryan Strome's our guy. That's my 2C.
My only requirement or preference for this contract is that it's a 4-year deal. I want Strome's contract to expire the same offseason as Panarin's.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
My only requirement for the Strome extension is that it's a 4-year deal, because I want Strome to be UFA the same summer as Panarin. I want those contracts synced up.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's all.
I don't blame you. I think that's a great belief, obviously.
If they go 5 or 6 years to drive down the cap hit, I can live with it.
Yep. No, me too, for sure. But with that being said, let's get into our Q&A now that we'll be doing for the next 5 to 10 minutes. We'll be answering a couple questions for you guys, and then we'll be getting into the upcoming schedule. Again, if you're watching live on YouTube, thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button for weekly Rangers pods here on Rangers Review, and wherever you get your podcast, leave a nice review if you guys somehow, some way like us. Always appreciate. But I do see a $5 donation here. Thank you so much. Let's see, Chefra 54. Thank you so much for the $5 donation. Really do appreciate that. Like I said, we are now going into a Q&A for a couple questions that we'll be answering for you guys before we get into the upcoming schedule. And of course, upcoming schedule is highlighted by one game far more than anything else that I just cannot wait for. I know a lot of you guys are going to be in attendance for that. Yes, the obvious one.
the first ever game in New York by the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, of course. Okay. What else would we be talking about? I'm glad that it didn't take you that long to figure out. Let's see. I did see a comment earlier that I do want to address. Let me see if I could find it real quick. There was one comment, I think it was about Chychrun, that's saying if the Rangers land Chychrun, does that mean that Strome's a goner? And that's a fair question. And
it is a fair question. It is a fair question. I still think they can make it work in different ways. But regardless of what's going to happen, Hedl and Nemeth are gone in the offseason. Yeah. This team cannot afford to have players on the books for $2.5 million when they get outplayed by kids on an entry-level deal.
It's fair. Let's see. Couple questions here. How much do you think Kakko and Key get in their extension? That's a good question. I mean, it's really hard for me personally to evaluate what I think that they're going to make AAV wise, and over how long. That's another thing, right? Like I think that both of them are going to get mid-level extensions. I don't think either of them is going to be crazy long-term. Miller might be a little bit more long-term just because teams love locking up defensemen. But Kakko, I don't know. I could see Kakko signing really a 3-year deal, a 2-3-year deal. Yeah. I think Kakko could go on something like that of a shorter term. So that way, he hopefully has broken out by then statistically, where, he's going to be looking for a nice, pretty penny once that deal's done. And if it's 3 years from now, he'll still be like 23, 24 tops. So I think that's what my guess is.
Yeah, for Kakko, I'd say 3 years, $3 million a year.
Yeah.
for a bridge deal. And then in 2020, what will that be? 2025. Jeez, talking about 2025 here. Then in 2025, you talk about signing it up long term, because by then you will have all your buyouts off the books. You might have been able to move on from a big contract in Kreider or Trouba. I mean, 3 years is a long time. It's 2022 now. Look back at 2019, like January 2019. Look at how much changed over the last 3 years. A lot of things are going to change in the next 3 years, even though we are contenders. Look at the Blackhawks in 2010 and 2013. Those two cup teams, there's a lot of differences there. Miller, I don't know. If the Rangers are serious about Chychrun, I don't see Miller being part of this team anymore. It makes too much sense to include him in the trade if they go after Chychrun.
Yeah,
because you'd upgrade your second pair left defenseman. And yeah, I mean, sometimes you just have to capitalize on the value. Is there a risk? Of course, there's a risk that K'Andre Miller hits his ceiling elsewhere and wins a Norris. There's also a risk that he never hits his ceiling and he tops out as Brady Shea.
And again, I think that's something that the Rangers are going to wait out.
Yeah,
more than they will
maybe
dealing with early. I will be surprised if K'Andre Miller is not a New York Ranger for a while.
Yeah. If this team wins a cup in 2024, which is always when I projected us to be contenders, if this team goes for a cup in 2024, there will be players that are no longer on this team that we are attached to right now. It's just the way it is, the way of the game. This is not the 70s and 80s anymore.
Yep. No, you're not wrong. Again, we're gonna see what happens, but especially regarding K'Andre, I do think that he'll be here for a bit. But getting on to a couple more things. Court Python, what's up? Says Colin Blackwell's return. I will cry. Not happening. But I'm sorry. You're talking about the Seattle game.
Sunday.
Yes. The most important game.
We're talking about the biggest game of the year.
Of course. How could I forget? Shame on me. Yeah. I should just walk away right now while I still can. Master, let's see. How long will it take for the Rangers to give Schneider's AHL partner and Zach Jones back?
I can answer that one. It's going to be 3 hours and 39 minutes.
Yeah, because we saw. Go ahead.
Zach Jones was called up from the taxi squad, and the Rangers are playing at 7 p.m. against the Blue Jackets. We might see a Jones Schneider pairing tonight.
That would actually be pretty. I mean, why not at this point? I mean, how much has Gallant need to see with Nemeth? Let's be honest here. I say this is a game where you do toy with Jones too against a below 500 team versus tomorrow against Minnesota, which have been a powerhouse this season, directly in part because of, Kirill Kaprizov and our good friend Matt Zuccarello. Love you, Zook. We'll always love you, Zook. But, not to get on a tangent here. Also, since the Rangers are looking at Chychrun, okay, we already talked about that Miller part. So,
yeah, we already addressed it.
Let's see. Couple more questions.
I expected some questions about Henrik Lundqvist night, but
I don't think there's really much questions. I think we're all going to feel the same way. I don't think it's as question as it is, just giving a statement like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to be I unfortunately can't be in attendance. Those tickets would have cost me an arm and a leg, but I'm making a whole day out of it tomorrow. Like 100%. I'm going to wear Hank stuff all day tomorrow. Going to be glued to my TV.
I did actually put up some jerseys. They're not Lundqvist jerseys, but moments of Lundqvist's career that are memorable. Is
that the Gaborik All-Star jersey?
Yeah, so center ice practice jersey from his rookie season. Gaborik All-Star jersey when he scored on Lundqvist and had the AK-47 Selly. Remember that?
Yeah, I find it so funny that you brought that Gaborik All-Star jersey. I love those are my favorite All-Star jerseys. Might I add, that year was like perfect in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
But it's just so funny how you pick the man that was essentially the nemesis for Hank in that game to put on the wall. Well, I love it. So it was fun. Like, there wasn't anything bad about it. It was just
Catherine, my fiance, bought the Henrik Lundqvist All-Star jersey from that year. So it seemed fitting for me to then go with a Gaborik one.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair. I
And then
don't blame you.
the third one is actually a practice worn jersey from Eric Christensen from the Winter Classic. So Winter Classic 2012.
And yes, I know that Eric Christensen's brother is from
No,
cousin.
I wasn't going to mention it.
Cousin is from
But
Star Wars. Yes, I'm aware.
May the force be with you. I wasn't going to mention it, but you did anyway.
I had to mention it because I knew you would at some point. All right.
No, I wasn't going to. I was
Okay.
going to talk about the 2012 Winter Classic.
Okay, fair enough.
In Philly. Did you go in 2012?
I didn't go, but I had friends that went. I was literally 12 at the time. It was so awesome to watch at home. The Yager salute by Rupper and saved by Ambriere. It was Ambriere, right?
Yeah, Danny Briere on the penalty shot. Yes.
Electric game. My favorite Winter Classic.
I have the McDonough jersey from that game. It's McDonough. McDonough caused the penalty shot because he covered the puck in the crease with his glove.
Oh, that's true. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm glad he brought that up. Yeah. Sweet
memory. Lundqvist retirement night. He is the 11th Ranger to get his number retired. Only 4 of those 11 have won a cup with the Rangers. So
really,
it goes to show you. Yeah. So Leach, Richter, Graves, and Messier won a cup with the Rangers, and then the other 7, Giacomin, Howell, Gilbert, Rattel, Hatfield. I'm missing one. Lundqvist and Bathgate. So those 7 will be up in the rafters together tomorrow night without winning a cup in New York. And I was talking to someone about this the other day. It's weird how it's almost harder to get your number retired by a team than to get into the Hall of Fame.
That's a great point, and that's why it's going to be not just an emotional night; it's going to be a historic night. I can't wait. I know that you can't either. Everyone, this is especially for people like me, and you too, but for people where like their first years of Rangers fandom were like during the young startup of Hank. Like that was an entire like life of ours. That unfortunately has ended. But now we get to relive it again. I know he's going to have right around 100, upwards of 100 people from Sweden, and just everyone connected. A lot of former players, of course, teammates, and of just knowing that he's going up against Zook is that couldn't have been better in my mind. I love that so much with probably his closest friend that he's made through hockey.
The only other date that I expected it to be, if it wasn't tonight, was going to be March 2nd against the Blues, because it's his birthday. But this night makes sense. I think his brother's going to be in attendance as well.
Awesome.
So
yeah, Joel, we'll get the twin. Got to make sure that people don't think it's Hank walking around.
Nah. Hank is a better point producer in the NHL than Joel, anyway.
Yes, he is. And speaking of Hank, great question here from Michael. Do you guys think Henrik will eventually become a goalies coach for the Rangers down the line with our already great goaltending coach as a team? Loving the podcast. Thank you so much for the kind words, Michael. I appreciate that. I know you're saying no, Steven.
I'm going to explain why before you answer this question.
Okay.
If I would have told you 10 years ago that Steve Valiquette would be an analyst on MSG, would you have believed me?
I don't know. Probably not.
If someone would have told you 30 years ago that Joe Micheletti would be an announcer at MSG, would you have believed me? Probably not.
Mm-mm.
The thing is, we often try to idolize the players we grew up with and try to picture them in these roles where, we can keep an eye on them, where they are still part of our lives. And I did it too, as a kid. My favorite player in football, in soccer growing up, was Jari Liikmanen from Finland. And if there's any Finnish listeners here, they'll know who I'm talking about. I always wanted this guy to become part of the coaching staff in Amsterdam at Ajax. I always wanted to, because to me, that would keep the memory alive. That would keep the legacy going. And I think we see a similar thing here with Henrik Lundqvist. Fans want this to happen because then he's part of the team still. And then when we win a cup, he can still get his name on the cup and his legacy can continue. But Wayne Gretzky never went in. He went into coaching, but he never coached in Edmonton. Mark Messier never went into coaching. The number of people, like the number of star players that go into an office role with their team and are successful, are so scarce. It's so rare for that to happen.
I truly believe that if Hank is going to, be in the Rangers organization, as much as I think he would be perfect as, of course, goalie coach, to be the next man up when Benoit Lair's done, I do think that something like really front office makes more sense for Hank. I think if it's going to be anything, I think it's going to be something higher up.
Sure.
And if we're looking at the anomalies, at least with an organization with their star players, could Hank find himself getting to a Stevie Y point? It's possible. I don't think it's likely, but that is one of those anomalies where, Stevie Y, of course, running the show for Detroit now. Now they got Nicholas Lidstrom in that front office too, which is insane. But
Yeah.
that doesn't happen very often, to your point.
Being a scout, or that's different from what we're talking about here with the goalie coach. A good player doesn't automatically make a good coach, and playing and coaching are so vastly different. This is why in companies, in like normal day-to-day jobs, the best person on a team is not always the best candidate to manage to lead that team, because they're two different jobs. I would love to see Henrik Lundqvist be a goalie coach on the Rangers. I just don't think he's cut out for it. Maybe I'm wrong. I just think where he is now in the studio with John Giannone and Steve Veliket, on occasion, or be in the ESPN studio with Kevin Weeks, that's where he shines. That's where he can really do what he loves. He loves to talk about hockey. I don't think Henrik Lundqvist is the type of guy that's going into coaching. The same way Brian Leach didn't go into coaching, and Mark Messier didn't go into coaching, and Adam Graves didn't go into coaching, and even Mike Richter. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's really hard to predict which players end up in a coaching role or even a scouting role. I don't think any Ranger would have expected Jet Ortmeyer and Tanner Glass to be director of player development for the Rangers, but here we are.
Yep. No, that's a good point. And again, we all would love Hank, stay in the Rangers organization forever. We'll see what the future holds. But outside of him potentially being in the front office, he just has, he's always had that beautiful face. He does seem like the type to stay potentially on TV as well, continuously being a analyst, not just for MSG, also for TNT for a while. I think that honestly might be his strongest suit to stay, ingrained with the Rangers for a bit, is to, be doing analyst stuff on the TV.
He'd be perfect to participate in Dancing with the Stars or something like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I almost feel like he's to a higher status than that at this point, that maybe he won't even consider it. Like he's so top tier. Like I don't know. Maybe he's right, but yeah, if he does consider it, yeah, Hank, he doesn't even need to dance. He can just stand there, and you're gonna get a 10 out of 10. But look, to wrap things up now, folks, before we get out of here, let's take a quick look at the upcoming schedule and share our predictions. Steven and I, 4 games for the Rangers coming up before we discuss again a week or so from now, probably next Wednesday or Thursday. And those games consist of tonight being against the Columbus Blue Jackets in Columbus. Then tomorrow, of course, the big Hank game against the Minnesota Wild. They're playing some really good hockey this year. And then we have next week, towards the end of the week, going into next week, the Seattle Kraken make their first debut in MSG against the Rangers first time. That's going to be fun to watch. And then the final game before we talk again a week from now or so is against the Florida Panthers back in MSG. Panthers, unfortunately, have had the best of the Rangers so far this season. I think we played Florida at least once already. Let's see if the Rangers can get something rolling against the Panthers. But big 4 games coming up. Some teams are definitely sticking out more than others. So I'm going to go first with my predictions because I have the belt currently, and I'm going to go with the exact same prediction I had last week. I'm going to go 3-1 again. But for goals, I'm going to stay slightly more on the conservative side of 14. That's just 1 less than I had than last week. But I'm going to go 3-1. I think that this is something that, of course, the Rangers can lose more than 1 game. But I'm going to stick with, what worked already. And this schedule is a little similar than the last 4 games. Last 4 games, 2 teams that are, of course, on the Rangers level record-wise, and 2 teams that, aren't, or at least one of them. Canes have a surprisingly good record this year. But yeah, that's my pick. 3-1, and the Rangers score 14 goals at most.
So obviously I'm going to take the over, so I'm going to go with 15 goals.
Yep.
I'm going to do something I haven't done yet this season.
What's that?
I'm going to go for a sweep 4-0.
Oh, okay. I like that. Fair.
And I know it's risky because the Rangers absolutely suck when they have special event games.
You have no idea how worried I am about the performance the Raiders are going to put up. You have no idea. I just pray that's a close game regardless, whatever it is.
Rangers retire a number, they have like a 25th anniversary game, or they honor someone from the past.
Those SOBs better give it all for Hank. Seriously, they have no choice.
It feels like it's almost a guaranteed loss, but I'm just gonna go for it. 4-0. 4-0.
Look, if you get the belt back after predicting 4-0, I will be more than happy to give it to you. That's a good reason to win. That's a good reason to win. But
one thing left to go.
One thing left to go. Yes, it is episode 46, Steven. And this is the episode where I don't have a effing clue what 46 Ranger history is at all. There's one player that stands out to me, but I think he was actually 45, and he's not even on the Rangers, so you can't even say it. Lauri Pajuniemi. That's the only player that came to my mind.
Oh, Pajuniemi plays with number 48.
Was he 46 at all for the Rangers? No.
In prospect camp he was 49.
Oh, that's why. Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't have a damn clue. So enlighten me.
Only 3 players have worn number 46 for the Rangers in official games. The last one was Rob O'Gara.
Oh my God! Yeah, I wouldn't even remember that. The key piece of the Rick Nash trade. Don't get it twisted.
Was it the Nash trade or was it the Holden trade? I think
no. That was. I'm pretty sure that was the Nash. Wait.
No, I think it was the Holden trade.
He's from Boston.
Let me look this up before.
I thought it was O'Gara. What was it? O'Gara? I thought it was O'Gara, Bolesky, Lindgren in the first, or was O'Gara part of Holden? Maybe you were right.
Nick Holden.
Okay. All right.
Rob O'Gara and a 3rd-round pick.
Okay. Fair enough. All right.
The second most recent player to wear number 46 for the Rangers in 2016-17 was Marek Hrivik from Slovakia.
Hrivik was actually pretty good in the Wolfpack.
I remember one of his junior teams, his nickname was the Frog, because when you pronounce his last name, it almost sounds like what a frog sounds like, Hrivik.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But the first player to ever wear number 46 as a Ranger in 2006-2007 was Dan Girardi.
Well, I learned something new today.
When he made his NHL debut, he won number 46 before.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Isn't that funny how he goes from 46 to picking the number in the middle?
Yeah, it's weird.
It is weird, right?
But it's probably because number 6 was already taken by Wade Redden.
Yeah, that's a good point too. But
sorry.
All right, well, fun. I learned something new today. I'll take that for sure. But with that being said, that's going to wrap up this extended version of Rangers Review, episode 46. We'll be back here a week or so from now on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, folks. Hopefully another great 4 games upcoming for the Rangers. Hopefully they at least start out the game good. I just want that. Comebacks are nice, but I don't want to see comebacks consistently. I want to see them dominate. So hopefully we get some good games coming up starting tonight at the time of recording this. But that'll do it, folks. Thank you all so much for listening. Wherever you get your podcast, leave a nice review, all that fun stuff. And Steven, let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.